Today I have Klarus's new deep carry EDC light, the E1. This is designed with EDC in mind to minimize the size of an 18650 size light while providing a good amount of output and features. Thanks to Klarus for sending this to me to take a look at before it's widely available. As always guys, don't forget to check the description below for links to my various social media platforms, and make sure you're following me there for updates on the channel and what's coming next. Here is the packaging the Klarus E1 comes in. It's a nice hanging retail box here. We can see that it's got a nice picture of the light, a few little details in very small print here. On the side you've got a few more details. On the back you've got a runtime chart, and on the other side you've got, again, a few more details which we'll go over. Here is the manual the light comes in. You've got what I presume is Chinese, English continued, German, Spanish, and French. Included with the light, you get a micro USB to USB cable for charging the battery. You get a lanyard here that's branded Klarus and one spare O-ring. And then you get this nice little Klarus felt bag to kind of keep and store everything in. And you do get an 18650 battery inside, which I'll talk about later here in the review. The specs, just going over just a few things here quick, are on high, this does 1000 lumens, medium 400 lumens, low 100 lumens, moonlight 2 lumens, strobe 1000, SOS 100, and it is IPX8 water rated. So construction wise, the Klarus E1 is made from aluminum and it's hard to anodize this semi-gloss black finish. It's a nice fit and finish overall, and that's what I've come to expect from recent Klarus lights. Starting at the tail cap here, we can see we've got a tall, proud button here that is the main on-off button. It's a clicky button, it's loud. Then there is this paddle here, opposite side that. Then you've got this half shroud kind of deal that this is where your lanyard attaches. When this is in the pocket, this helps prevent the button from actuating accidentally. The downsides here are that because of this tail arrangement, the light's not magnetic and it cannot tail stand due to this is uneven, as you can see here. So it just doesn't tail stand, it'll fall right over. If we look here, we've got just a little bit of a knurling kind of to give just a little bit of extra grip. On the inside, we've got a single spring. Threads here are pretty shallow. They're like square cut, and on mine they are ungreased. You've got a single wall construction. Here is the battery itself, as I mentioned earlier. It is a proprietary battery. You've got a proud center button here with the plus side, and then a micro USB rechargeable port on the side here. It is 2600 milliamp hours, which is a little disappointing given it's 2019. The reason I think they do the plus and the minus on one side of the battery here is that's how they're doing the dual safety switch. If we look at the body tube here, we see that it's got these rings milled in here and then just broken up into panel sections. I like this knurling here. The bad thing is it doesn't provide a ton of grip. It's kind of in between. It provides grip, but not so much. It'd be nice maybe if it was just a little bit more. On the head, we've got the Klarus E1. I should mention this is all one piece, the body and the head. And there's minimal branding on this light, which I really prefer. You've got a hot warning label there, you've got the serial number, and that's pretty much it. Let's talk about the clip here just a little bit. It fits here at the top of the head of the light. It is not reversible. It's an extremely deep carry pocket clip, which I like. It's reasonably stiff, and you can slip this under the bill of a hat just like this, and it'll work as a headlamp, or you could do it on top. The other neat thing about this light is it's got a little tricolor LED here. It can go green, orange, and red, and this lets you know when it's recharging, needs recharging, battery power level indicator, and it helps for the mode configuration as well. Looking at the optic here, it is kind of like a TIR optic that is from other brands, but it looks a little bit different, not exactly like that. It's kind of unique, but produces a similar effect. I measured the length at 107 millimeters, the diameter at 23 millimeters, weight with included battery and clip was 96 grams. And wanted to comment on the carry of this light. It carries in my front pocket really nicely. It's an incredibly deep carry clip, which I really like. And as I mentioned, it can clip to the bill of a ball cap to use as a headlamp if you want. Being a heads up carry, like this, it does require you when you pull it out of your pocket, so let's pretend I'm going into it with my pocket. Instead of some that have a button here on the side that I find that's a natural grip to pull out of the pocket and rotate what the E1 requires you to do is pull it out and then flip it around kind of and get on the side. So I don't think I got that on camera this time. Pull it out of the pocket, kind of flip it around, and then hit your side buttons. For me, that's just a little bit inconvenient, I found. So that's one thing I dislike on the lights with the side switches, like the Olight S2R here. You can carry it clip up, or head up, I should say, and then you just get on the button, which is right there. Your hand's already in position, basically. For me, of the lights I own, the obvious comparison here is the Olight S2R Baton series of lights. They're very similar lights, both being 18650 lights with TIR style optics. The E1 is 1.5 grams lighter than the Olight S2R2 and about 5 millimeters longer than the Olight, and that's mostly due to that little shroud around that button. Diameter-wise, they're identical. Output-wise, the Klarus is overall less, but I'm okay with that for the most part. It's 1,000 lumens and you don't really need a ton more. If I throw something in here a bit larger, here is the ThruNite TC15, and we can see the Olight's magnetic tails just wanting to grab that. But we can see it's quite a bit longer light. These are all 18650s and similar diameters. That ThruNite does have micro USB charging here, which doesn't help, and it's got a deeper reflector here, which you can see, which also makes it longer. And if I throw the Klarus here on a dollar bill, you can get a sense for its size as well. So the LED being used here is the XPL High V4. It's in a relatively cool white, upwards of probably 6,000 Kelvin. Beam pattern from this optic isn't perfectly round. It's almost a bit flowery shaped. It's got a mostly hot center, but fades evenly into a spill, and the spill's very wide, almost 180 degrees till the cutoff. Heat here wasn't anything I was really concerned about because the light did step down from that 1,000 lumens pretty quickly, about 1 minute. Overall, it gets warm, but nothing to worry about. Runtimes were almost what I expected. High stepping down was really quick, only about 1 minute, and it was pretty dramatic to 40% relative output. But then the light cooled down and it jumped back up to about 50%, and it oscillated between 50 and 38% relative output for about 40 minutes. The bulk of that output was at that 38% relative output, and that sounds like a dramatic difference between 1,000 lumens and roughly what is 400 lumens, but your eye doesn't perceive light linearly, so it's not as bad as it sounds. Medium, as you'll see from my night shots here, is pretty decent. Output lasted at that point for 140 minutes before stepping down to 10% relative output and then to 0. Low voltage protection kicked in at over 350 minutes. That's something that's a little bit interesting about this light. At least in my testing, I ran it from completely charged to completely discharged, and it was still going at the 8-hour mark. And I ended up stopping my test to recharge the battery, and at that point the battery was something like 2.8 volts, which is okay, but a little low for my taste. So the light would have to run for quite a bit longer, I think, till it actually low voltage protection truly kicks in. Overall mode spacing here is pretty good on this light at 1,000, 400, 100, and 2 lumens. Okay, tonight I've got my Klarus E1 out here for review, and this is the lowest mode, 2 lumens. And I've got this in the outdoor setting here. You can see this does a nice job of basic illumination. I feel like it's maybe just a little bit brighter than 2 lumens, but that's what Klarus rates it at. If I bump up, this is 100 lumens, and we can see this does quite well. This optic in here is kind of like a TIR optic and throws pretty nice. Nicely lights up my fence, my backyard. This has got quite a bit of runtime. Bumping up one more to medium. This is 400 lumens. Again, nice job. For as small light as this is, it does a pretty nice job of throwing. And last setting is the top, 1,000 lumens, and this is high. This is also the mode that strobe is on. We can see it throws out to the trees across the street pretty decently. As far as cutoff, we can see it's got a fairly wide spill as I look at the tree and pan up. But you can still see it's illuminating the deck decently. And if I keep going, I'm about 80 degrees up in the air right now. We can see it's just pointing off out of the deck there. So it's almost like 180 degrees of spill at the very edges. Again, here's straight on. Here I'm about 45 degrees from the camera, and here is 90 degrees. So we can see it's almost that 180 degree beam width. Again, there is turbo. If we start back over, we've got moonlight, 2 lumens that I can show you, 100 lumens, 400 lumens, and 1000. On the left, I've got the Klarus E1. On the right here, I've got the Olight S2R Baton 2. You can see the Olight here, it's got a lot larger hotspot than the Klarus here. And the Olight's also got more lumens overall, and we can see it's just a little bit brighter. So here is the Klarus at 1000 lumens and the Olight S2R Baton. More lumens, but not quite as throwy, bigger hotspot, and not as much spill. So UI on this light is controlled with the switches in the tail cap here. Like other recent Klarus models, you have 2 UI modes for this light. The factory default is outdoor mode, which I found to work for EDC quite well. And there's also a tactical mode, which I'll talk about here in a minute. The paddle switch gives you momentary, and it starts off in the mode you were last in. And for me, that happens to be low here. You can click and hold for 1 minute, and the light will stay on. Or you can just use it as a momentary. And once the light's on, that paddle becomes your mode selector. And as you can see, the light goes from low to high. Your main button is a large mechanical switch that can give you instant access to high or turbo. On this light, they're the same. And you can half press it for momentary or full press it in for lock. And then just the same in this mode, you've got your paddle to give you your mode selector. Or you can long press for what seems like a long time, and the light will go to SOS. And once it's turned on with that switch, you do have to press the switch again to turn it off. If you've got the light turned on with the paddle, it'll come on, and you can long press it again to shut it off. To switch modes, when the light's off, you press and hold the paddle for 5 seconds, and then that battery indicator LED flashes. And at that point, you press the large primary switch without releasing the paddle to switch modes. And that second mode is that tactical setting where the primary button turns on the light to high, and then you use the paddles to change modes. And in tactical, the light goes from high and decreases in brightness to medium, low, and then moonlight. To enter strobe, when the light's on, hold that paddle for 2 seconds. When the light's off, pressing the paddle will give you direct access to strobe in that tactical mode. Lockout for either mode can be accomplished just by turning that tail cap a little bit, and that's what I prefer for lockout is mechanical. Recharging on the Klarus E1 is accomplished through the micro USB port on the included Klarus branded 2600 milliamp hour battery. The battery here is proprietary because that positive terminal on the plastic spacer around it, as well as the negative terminal on the traditional positive end. This is done to allow those 2 switches near the rear to work, and that's pretty similar to what we saw on the Klarus XC21X. And this is just a little bit disappointing to me to have a proprietary battery, one that's such a small capacity included. Klarus does have a 3600 milliamp hour battery for the E1, but it does carry a premium price. Charging speed from low voltage protection, which as I mentioned was about 2.8 volts, to a full 4.162 volts. Took quite a while for this smaller battery at 3 hours and 41 minutes. Maximum charging speed I saw was 0.94 amps. So for me, the pros were, it's a good factory deep carry deep clip, but only allows for tip up carry. And as I mentioned, it's just a little awkward to get out of the pocket with the way the buttons are for me. It's a good fit and finish, and I like the look of the product. I think it's pretty attractive. And I love that they've got included 2 UI modes for users to pick from to better suit their needs. More manufacturers, in my opinion, should be doing this. The cons for me are that proprietary battery and only 2600 milliamp hours as standard. A larger 3500 milliamp hour battery is available, but for an additional charge. I dislike that the light doesn't tail stand or isn't magnetic because of that dual button configuration. I used this light a lot for some IT work this past 2 weeks and found myself lacking these 2 features. My conclusion is that the Klarus E1 is an interesting light. I really like that for its size, it's an 18650 light. It's short and about as narrow as possible. It has a pretty good UI, and I love to see that they've give you the option of an outdoors mode or a tactical mode. Not everybody needs or wants strobe. The light isn't perfect though. I found in my daily IT work, I miss the ability to tail stand and have a magnetic tail. And I didn't love to rotate the light once I pulled it out of my pocket to get on the tail cap. I just found it was a little awkward. As I mentioned, it's disappointing that in 2019, Klarus decided to ship a light with only a 2600 milliamp hour proprietary battery. They could have increased the value of this light by shipping it with an optional 3500 milliamp hour battery instead for a pretty minimal cost increase for them. That said, I'm seeing this light available from US retailers for just under $40 right now. So that makes it a good deal less expensive than the nearest Olight competitors, which helps make up for that battery shortcoming in my opinion. If you prefer a tail switch light over an E-switch light on the side, which I know many of you do, and we're looking for a nice EDC light that carries well in the pocket, I'd recommend the Klarus E1, especially when you can find it on sale. And under those conditions, I do recommend it. As always, guys, please check in the description below on links to where you can purchase this light, and make sure you check out the blog post on this review as well, as I'll have lots of pictures and a few more additional details that I didn't include in the video here. As always, if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. And thanks for watching.